In addition to the other types of videos I make on this channel, I want to start doing quicker, shorter, simpler movie reviews. I'm not going to just trash movies. I think there's enough negativity online in general. The world will not benefit from another YouTuber just ranting and raving about movies they hate. Instead, I want to frame this as you should see. So, you should see Heretic. Heretic is a horror movie directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. It stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. This movie was released by A24, and if you've seen any of their horror movies over the past decade or so, you know they're putting out some of the most original movies out there, and Heretic was no exception. You've got two young girls who are missionaries for the Mormon church. They're going door to door trying to tell people about their faith, perhaps convert them, and one day they go to Hugh Grant's house. I don't remember his character's name, but he's just Hugh Grant to me. Either way, Hugh Grant is a pretty creepy dude. These girls don't know it, but he's got some kind of evil scheme set up for him. He's got some kind of trap, and you could tell there's some dangerous stuff that's about to happen. Heretic felt very original. It wasn't just some slasher movie with a bunch of blood and gore. There were some parts when I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen next, and that's always a really cool feel in a movie. Heretic was one of those movies that got a lot of use out of just one location. I think like 90% of this movie took place within Hugh Grant's house. Despite this, it never felt old or that location never got stale because his house was this sprawling maze with secret traps and different compartments and dungeons, and it kept going and going. And as the plot progressed, the girls would go into deeper, darker, more dangerous parts of his house. So you felt like you're entering different layers of hell that got more complex and more dangerous as the story went. As far as the acting and characters go, the movie is basically just Hugh Grant and the two missionary girls. They were probably like 90% of the movie. They carried the entire thing. There were some other characters here and there that had some stuff to do with the plot, but the core of this movie was those three people. What I think made this better than your usual teenagers getting murdered kind of movie was Hugh Grant's villain and his speeches and rants and monologues he would go on, and the general premise of the trap, the situation that these girls were in. He wasn't just a violent, crazy person. He wasn't like Buffalo Bill, where he just kidnaps people and murders them in his basement for some crazy reason in his own head. He played a lot of mind games and used these philosophical traps to make his victims feel like they've chosen to be there in his trap, or at least that's how he sees it.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave, but I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
And at points he seemed like the angriest hipster in the world to me. He's like, but that wasn't the first. I know who did it first. Let me show you. And these girls were just kind of stuck there in his house listening to this angry, aging hipster go on about his research. Both of the two girls playing the Mormon missionaries I thought did very well in this movie. They had the same job. They were both missionaries for the Mormon church, going door to door trying to convert people, but the characters were distinct enough in their personalities and their personal belief systems. The characters felt unique from each other. Heretic was a lot deeper and more philosophical than I was expecting, which I really enjoyed. I was pleasantly surprised. The movie gave you a lot to think about during and left you with questions after. Some of the philosophy and themes behind this movie reminded me a lot of the Matrix trilogy, how it had to do with systems of control and choice and fate and free will. A lot of cool stuff like that. So in conclusion, should you see this movie? Yes, I think you should. I think this belongs in the top tier of A24 horror movies. They've been putting out some great stuff, and this is another one of those thinking man's horror movies. It's that elevated horror, as they call it. Why shouldn't you see this movie? Well, if you're expecting like a straightforward horror movie where Hugh Grant's just a violent, murdering psychopath and he has saw traps set up for these girls in his basement and they have to find their way out, or it's like the movie Hostel or something where they're just trapped and being tortured. It's not like that. It's a much more thinking in your head kind of horror movie. I was pleasantly surprised by that aspect of the movie. Totally would watch this again, and I recommend you see it if you haven't. I always like to end my videos by saying that if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that you watched all the way through, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.